Righty. Just looking at my screen, but considering the delay, I think we are live now. My name is Emil, and I'm the CEO of Project Access. And with me today, I have Amir and Ella. We'll just give everyone a couple of minutes to get started. But while we wait for the last couple of people to turn up for this webinar on extracurriculars under the Corona lockdown, you're very welcome to start already now, adding some questions in the comments section on YouTube, so that we can accommodate for those questions and hopefully answer all of them. The plan for the webinar today is that Amir and Ella will have the chance first to go through some tips and tricks for how to do webinars under these times. We will importantly also talk a bit about why universities like you to do extracurriculars, and also when universities do not expect you to do extracurriculars, because it's no secret that this coronavirus is challenging a lot of families. Maybe your parents have been furloughed, or maybe they've even lost their jobs. Maybe your school is offering very, very limited support in this crisis, and all your attention is focused towards just finishing your exams and preparing for them at least. Maybe your exams have been canceled and you're a bit unsure what this actually means for you. So please don't stress too much about this webinar. The idea behind it is very much to give you some very simple tips on how to get started, and some inspiration and ideas for also diving into some of the cool things out there you can do if you're fortunate to have some time on your hands right now to explore these things. I think we'll give people another minute or so, and then we'll slowly get started.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've got a jam-packed agenda for you guys today, and it's going to be really exciting. So as Emil did say, pop those questions in the comments, whether they're related or not, and hopefully we'll try and get through as many of them as possible.
Right, I think we're seeing a lot of signups, so that's really exciting. So I think we can slowly make a start. So hey everyone, and welcome to this webinar. This is without doubt my first webinar, and I'm the fortunate guy who's been playing around with the tech. To everyone who's streaming on YouTube normally, you guys are technical wonders and heroes, and I feel like my grandmother. But we're here. I hope the quality is all right. If not, please don't blame it on Amir or Ella or anyone else who's been involved in this process. Please blame it solely on me. I'm at emil@projectaccess.org, and I'm very happy for feedback and complaints. But to quickly give you an introduction, my name is Emil, and I'm the lucky CEO of Project Access. I'm one of 3 co-founders when we started Project Access back in 2016, and we started this organization as a movement for students, by students, and trying to make top universities a bit more equal. Or importantly, try to make sure that students with high potential can get into top universities regardless of their socioeconomic or demographic background. So today we work across about 20 countries, supporting applicants who are amazing and inspiring, and supporting them in applying to their dream universities, right now with teams at around 15 universities in the UK and the US, such as Oxford, Warwick, and Yale. And today we have speakers, very lucky, and we have 2 great speakers from 2 of those universities who will introduce themselves shortly and give you some tips on how to deal with extracurriculars during this lockdown. As I mentioned before as well, the lockdown is impacting people in a very different way. Some people might have had exams canceled and have the opportunity to actually spend extra time diving into extracurriculars right now. Other people have had complete changes of their daily lives, because their families have been impacted in tough ways, such as losing jobs or being furloughed. And it's important for you guys to not stress about this, and just recognize that this is impacting families in very different ways, and that there's no expectations or pressure from you guys, from the admissions offices, to do something that is not possible right now. So whatever you hear at this webinar today, take into account your own personal situation and adapt towards that. We spoke with some of our advisors last week, including advisors at MIT and at Cambridge, and they both stressed the fact that universities are indeed taking into account the impact this crisis has on people, and they won't hold it against you if you don't have as many extracurricular activities that you might normally have in normal times. But I think without further ado, I'll hand over the word to Amir and to Ella, who will introduce themselves, talk a bit more about the webinar. And I think the final thing for me is just to say that if you're not involved in our organization yet, either as a applicant on a mentorship program or involved by just using the free resources we have available on our website, we would absolutely love you guys to join our little organization. It's completely free, all the programs we run, and you can check them out at projectaccess.org or write us at hi@projectaccess.org anytime. Amir, over to you.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for the introduction there, Emil. My name's Amir. I go to the University of Warwick. I also run Education Equation, which is a new startup help tackling education inequality. And we've got a jam-packed agenda for you today. But before I go on, Ella, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm Ella. I'm a third-year student at Yale, double majoring in English and political science. But I'm originally from London. And I also volunteer for a nonprofit called Matriculate, which has very similar goals to Project Access. So I'm very excited to be on this webinar today.
Amazing. And as I said, let's just go through the agenda very quickly. So we're going to start off by telling you about how to avoid stress, how during these times you can simultaneously, be doing things for your applications, but also keeping your stress under control. The next thing is about values and what's really important to you. And we've got a huge list after that of really popular extracurriculars and insider tips to let you know how you should be handling some of those. Finally, how you can team up with friends. And if you're looking for specific US university tips, we've got that too. And finally, remember at the end, there's that Q&A. So if you do have questions, plop them into the comments right now. But without further ado, let's go on.
Okay, awesome. So starting with avoiding stress, I think Emil covered this very well, but we really just want to stress that universities will not hold it against you if you are overwhelmed and do not have the time or resources to do things that you would usually do in high school. And so just remember that we are in unprecedented circumstances right now, and that you and your family's mental and physical health should be your priority right now. And so really just remember to make that your top priority and ensure that you're doing stuff that you enjoy, that's helping you get through these circumstances. Because yeah, you should know that universities do count caring for your family, your siblings who aren't in school right now and you might have to look after, or whatever your personal situation is. Like whatever work you're doing counts as an extracurricular. You're, managing stress doing that, you're showing leadership and responsibility, and that's what universities are looking for in their future students.
Absolutely. I think, making sure your mental health is okay. And indeed, if you're looking after someone, if you're caring for someone, that is time management, and that's incredibly important. So do bear that in mind. In terms of thinking to yourself, so there's so much you can be doing during these times. If you've got a bit of spare time, you've got about 100 different courses out there. How the hell do you choose what you care about? I think it's really important to think about what you value, and we're going to have a list of topics later on, and some of them will immediately resonate to you, like, yeah, that's what I want to do. Try and think about during your day, what do you already enjoy? What kind of things do you love, and what really energizes you? At the end of maybe a certain activity, what do you come out of feeling really happy and you feel kind of like, yeah, I'm ready for the rest of it? In terms of next steps, so if you have a list, that lists like 400 courses, here's what I do. I kind of take maybe 10 of them, make a short list of them, and then kind of sit down with a friend and pick 3 of those courses. You and your friend try out those 3 courses together, and then at the end, you pick one of those 3 that you really want to go forward with. That way you shortlist them down, you pick the best ones, you're there with a friend. But as Ella mentioned, don't sacrifice your mental health for these kind of things. Universities absolutely appreciate that, and that's something really, really important to bear in mind.
And so now we thought we'd spend a bit of time just going through some popular extracurriculars that people are doing right now that you can do for free and with access to internet. And yeah, so the first one that came to mind that you might want to consider if you still want to do something academic, if perhaps you don't have school anymore and you still want to expand your knowledge. There are a lot of online courses you can do. So as many of you probably know, Duolingo is a great language learning app that's free, but there are also websites like Coursera and edX that offer loads of online courses for free. Many of them are taught by university professors that might give you an idea about whether a certain degree is for you. And there are so many options for free, from intro to psychology, to neuroscience, to data science, to history. So if you want to do something academic, and by no means feel pressured to do anything academic if that's not where your head is at right now, these are some options you can do. You can also do some extra reading. So I know that JSTOR has made a lot of its publications free, if that's something that interests you, particularly if you're applying to a UK university. A lot of universities like to see that you've done reading outside of class to show that you are dedicated to whatever subject you're going to apply for. So that might be something that you want to do to just really work out what course you want to take at uni, or just explore some interests that you haven't been able to during high school.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of those names we mentioned, we'll probably have, hopefully plop those down later on so you guys can have a reference as well. I've heard an incredibly large amount of people saying to me, Amir, I want to learn programming during these times, but I have no idea where to start. So the biggest thing I'm going to recommend here, and this is an absolute key, I think, if you are learning programming, is whatever course you pick, you have to try and bake in small wins and use projects. So let me explain what I mean by that. When you're learning programming, you'll probably go through what is 5 hours of content, 6 hours, 20 hours. And by the end of it, you won't be able to do anything exciting with what you have, right? Because you're just learning a course. What's really useful is if you say, okay, I've learned 5 hours worth of content. I'm going to use this to make a little mini project. I'm going to create something out of this. The reason why it's so important is A, you have something to show off, and it's something you actually have to show it, yeah, I've learned this. But B, it teaches you debugging. There's no course in the world that teaches you how to debug a program better than creating your own project. Let's say if you've learned is how to take text input and text output, you can create a little game with that, with an hour's worth of Python, right? But you can still make something out of it, and it teaches you a lot about that kind of process, and that is absolutely essential. If you're into gaming, and I hear a lot of people saying this, if you're into, say, Minecraft, right? Take Bucket or some other plugin and just try making a plugin. Look at that guide. It's going to be quite complicated. You're not going to get everything, but just start playing around with it. In about 5 hours time, you're going to have something to show for it. And that keeps you going, right? It gives you that power to say, yeah, I've achieved something. And it means that you won't get bored and give up halfway through, because too many people do that, but you need some sort of small win. So please, 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 guys, try different projects if you're doing programming. Make them for yourself. Use your creativity.
Great. And another thing you might want to consider is volunteering, and this can take so many forms. So what I'd recommend that you do is see what your local community is doing to tackle COVID-19 in your area, any related challenges that might come with. And so I know that some communities are looking for volunteers that can help with their laptops, just doing the logistics of getting food to people who can't leave their house because they might be extra vulnerable to COVID. You could also do online fundraisers. So there are a lot of things you can do just sitting at home on your laptop to help your community if that's something you're passionate for and you're feeling a bit restless at home. But volunteering can take so many other paths. So maybe what you might want to do is call your neighbors who you know are alone and might be really lonely, or your local care home, and just get on the phone with someone who you know probably hasn't been able to interact with other people outside of their small space of carers, and have a conversation with them and just get to know someone new, because that will really make someone's day. And that's a great thing that you can do that is still volunteering. It may just be one person you're impacting, but that's still super important. And then something else that I think I've been hearing is pretty popular and sounds like a really good idea is setting up free tutoring. So I know a lot of schools just are closed now, and now a lot of parents are having to homeschool their children, but parents might have other responsibilities, and you know, they might not know the curriculum as well as you guys do, being students yourselves, having gone through school much more recently than people's parents. And so you might want to advertise that you're going to offer free tutoring to students, and you could just do this on Skype or Zoom or on the phone or something like that, and be able to connect with younger students and really help them through this time when their education might be up in the air. So these are just some volunteering things you might want to consider as well.
Yeah, definitely. Those are some amazing, amazing tips. I think if there's something else you want to do, try creating a website. Right now, you can go to something like Wix or Squarespace, and you can make a free website for free. You know, what you might want to do with that is maybe for a personal purpose, you might want to document a journey, maybe like a little online blog or vlog. Additionally, you might want to raise money for a good cause. There are really easy ways to just connect PayPal these days. So if you want to link your volunteering to something you can do on your website and show the world, and you go to university and say, look what I did. I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any extracurriculars, but I created this campaign and raised this amount of money. That is such a fantastic thing to do, and they will love you for it. The next thing I want to highlight is during these times, and often indeed during times which might be kind of bad, like recessions, startups and entrepreneurship is a really powerful thing you can do. They can really elevate you. Even if it's not something you want to do for the rest of your life, maybe just for 6 months now, trying a startup, trying something is incredibly, incredibly important. Kind of like, if you're really interested in this, message me on LinkedIn. But one thing I recommend is reading books like The Lean Startup or Running Lean can really be really helpful. Just go out there and try something. There is so much opportunity these days. And I think that doing a startup and going to university, like, you know, I was maybe, 15, 18, 19, I had my own company, or like a startup or a business I had. Not only will employers love that, but universities absolutely love it too. So it's a fantastic thing you can do. But message me if you want some more specifics on that.
Great. And so if you are also looking for other creative things to do, you might want to consider podcast creation. And so this can take so many forms, but even you and your friends just getting together via Skype or finding some way to record and talking about whatever you care about, whether that's gaming or politics, that just shows a bunch of creativity towards to universities. Also that you, whether it's academic or not, that you care about something enough to like talk about it, like for an extended period of time with your friends, does show a lot in terms of communication skills and just organization and dedication to create a podcast. So that might be something you want to consider. But if you're less kind of, I don't know, you don't want to public speak or anything like that, which is completely understandable, and you're more inclined to writing, you should just start a blog, because not only does this show your great writing skills, but employers really look for it as well, to show that you have these communication skills and can sustain an argument about whatever it is that you care about, whether you want to create like a baking blog, or you want to talk about some books you've read while you're in quarantine and you just really want to give a review for other people to read. These are all really good examples of things you can do. Or you might be a creative writer and you want to just create a blog where you can show your short stories and poetry. All of these are things that you shouldn't be scared to start doing now. And then there are so many other options that we won't go into detail, but just other things you might want to consider are if you can move any of the clubs you did in high school online. And so obviously this might be incredibly hard for some people, but if your debate team is still very eager to have debates, that is something you might be able to do on Skype or Zoom. Or you want to do a small like MUN tournament with your MUN club, or quizzes or improv or a cappella, anything like that. You might be able, it might not work, but you could try doing it online. So try and be creative in terms of what you might still be able to carry on doing that you did in high school and you really loved. And then also we talked at the beginning, especially about things that are incredibly academic. But again, I just want to stress, like, do things that you enjoy that will help you not stress. And like, if that's something creative, if you have the resources, go for it. If you really want to just play guitar or bake or, learn to draw or anything like that, these all show discipline, and that's another skill that universities are looking for. So hopefully this list of extracurriculars will give you guys some ideas about what you can be doing if you have the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, we'll try and provide that list to you or send it over and hopefully put in the comments. But the thing, what do you do with this list, right? So one of the things I really recommend is teaming up with a friend. And let me explain how I think you might ought to go about doing this. So if you have someone who kind of shares the same values as you and kind of cares about the same kind of stuff, you can work together on some of these. I think there are two main ways you can work together on them. The first way is you can be competitive, right? You can say, okay, I'm going to try and get through this much of this course, or you can try and get through that much. And what's really useful is having someone to talk about the course you're doing with is incredibly important. Discussing it, whether you agree or disagree, because again, there's a level of critical thinking that has to be involved, and just doing it on your own might not necessarily cut it. The second is if you're working together on a shared goal, if there's something that you want to achieve together. So when you have that other person, maybe it's like an accountability partner, someone who will hold you to account and say, don't put too much pressure on yourself, but let's try and do 1 hour together today. That can be incredibly, incredibly powerful and can really push both of you further. The ability to discuss, the ability to work together on something, especially if it's programming, maybe you're working on a website or a program and you can't understand it, your partner can help you out there. So that can be really amazing. And do utilize your friends, because I'm sure they're equally as bored as you are if you have nothing else to do.
So now we want to talk a bit about tips for US universities, because their extracurriculars are especially important for if you're applying to US universities. It's part of the common application. They ask you to put down what sort of things you do when you're not studying, when you're not preparing for the SAT and exams. And so just some things that I think people don't know that are really important are, firstly, universities just want to see that you've made the most of the resources you have. So if you are a low-income student, they're not going to penalize you if you don't have the resources to, found a charity, or you're not like a nationally renowned cello player because you don't have the money to pay for private lessons or something like that. So just know that you just need to do things that are in your power. And if right now you are looking after your siblings and you're exhausted at the end of the day and you don't have time to do any of the things we've listed, universities will be sympathetic to that. And you can always, when you're back at school, get into the clubs you were doing before. So just, I want to stress, because I feel like people think to get into a university like Yale, you have to be like some global champion at something. You really don't. They just want to see skills like leadership, determination, problem solving, and dedication. And most importantly, an ability to improve upon things you failed at. Like if you can show that perseverance, that is something that will really impress US universities. And so another thing that might be important to consider in terms of extracurriculars and US universities is that a lot of universities want to see that you are community minded. So obviously this might be incredibly hard during the current circumstances, how many of us are in quarantine, and so we can't go out and do things we might have usually done to help our communities. But if any of the things we mentioned before, like tutoring, appeal to you, that might be a really good example to show that, again, once things get back to normal, I would encourage among your other extracurriculars doing something that you know is going to help other people, because a lot of universities want to see that you're going to do something with your degree that will impact not just yourself, but the wider world. And so doing something, whether that's a very small community in your high school or whether that's your wider community and the people who live in your neighborhood, that's up to you. But really think about what your extracurriculars are doing to serve other people as well. And then finally, we've said this loads and loads of times, but remember, babysitting, any jobs you do outside of school right now, helping your family, maybe your parents have been furloughed, these all count as extracurriculars, and you should 100% put them down on your common application. If you spend 10 hours a week looking after your little brother, picking him up from school, you should put that on your application, because it shows that you are a responsible person, that people trust you, and so many other skills that they are looking for. So that's one thing I don't think gets said enough, but just remember that if you are considering applying to US universities.
Yeah, absolutely. Some amazing tips there. So if you are considering the US, even if you don't have money, there are loads of, so if you look at the Sutton Trust, they do various things with the US. So don't just write it off if you think, oh, it's going to be really expensive. There are things available. Have a look at them. Never give up on yourself before you have the opportunity, because there are always programs out there. So do have a look, and it can be an amazing experience. So we've kind of reached the end almost of our section where we talk at you guys. But if you have any questions, please put them down, because we want to be able to answer as many as possible right now. And we're not sure when our next webinar is going to be. But before we move on, what can you be doing right now? So you've listened to the webinar. Thank you everyone who's tuned in. Right now, what can you be doing when you leave this webinar and actually make a difference? 3 things I want to talk about. The first is that we're going to put a bunch of links down for various courses, maybe it's going to be over 400 there. Take 10 minutes to sift through them. Whatever catches your eye, make a short list of just 10. As I said, sit down with a friend of yours, then pick 3 of those. Then of those 3, start off with them and see which ones you're going to go with, and then pick one that you really love and really appeals to you and is really nice. That's the first thing I want to say. Secondly, at the end of this webinar, if you're feeling like you want to do something, you want to change something about how you're doing things, pick up the phone right now and call a mate of yours. Catch up with them, see how they're doing, and see whether they want to join you on that journey, because that can be incredibly, incredibly powerful. Third thing I want to mention, if things are really tough for you right now, I want to say that you're doing an amazing, amazing job. And the reason for that is because often these very tough experiences count for a lot in terms of the amount that you learn as an individual, and the things that you go through can really help you in future applications. So don't worry too much, because the fact that you're going through it is in and of itself something that's going to reflect positively about you. But I think before we move on, we'll post those things in the comments. Should we start our Q&A?
Great. So we'll just go through the questions chronologically. And the first question we have is, what are important factors for the application besides the grades? And so this really depends on if you're applying to a UK or a US university. So I would look into what is like part of the application process for the universities you're interested in. If you're asking for US universities, I'd say the most important things are grades, like the grades you've gotten all 4 years of high school. They all count equally for US universities, but also if you had a rough first few years of high school and you show improvement, that will also count. Secondly, obviously your extracurriculars count, but remember, you don't need like 10 extracurriculars to show you're a diverse, well-rounded student. Universities really just want to see that whatever you do outside of school, you're doing it because you're dedicated and you show that you're doing a good job at it. So really don't feel like you have to pick like 5 or 10 extracurriculars. Just pick 1 or 2 things you really care about and do that. And then also your SAT scores count for something, or your ACT scores count for something. And finally, your essays, your Common App essay and any supplemental essays you do are really important. And they're just a really good chance to show universities that what kind of person you are that they can't already see from your grades and things you do. So you can really talk about anything there and just show the qualities that you think make you unique as a person.
Absolutely. Just to tag on to that for the UK, I want to say 2 points. The first point is just quickly on like academics. So it's not just your grades, but kind of the relevant things you do. So for example, if you're studying maths, you might be talking about the books you've read, or you might be talking about kind of the extra summer schools you've done or online courses, all that kind of stuff that is academically potentially relevant. Secondly, if you are from a background which might be somewhat disadvantaged, or you feel like you've had hardships, a lot of universities have reduced offers for that. So look up their programs online. Additionally, they have bursaries available as well. So if you are looking into that kind of stuff, do the research online, because there are lots of different things available. And if you find out about them, that could be really powerful. So I think Stefan has asked, do you know any resources about global hackathons that are COVID related? Insofar as that, I think there are a few available. In fact, there are, if you kind of Google them, if you message me personally, I have a list as well. There are also a couple of venture capitalist firms. If you are interested in startups and you have an idea of how to tackle COVID, there's a lot of people willing to put, even if you're very young, put money behind that. So definitely something to look into, and I can give more specifics there.
And Stefan also asks, how can one give tutoring to university students? Just to clarify, I'm not sure if I said this, but that might be a lot harder as a high school student tutoring university students, but hey, maybe you're fluent in a language that university students really want to learn. I'd say it's probably easier to tutor people who are younger, who have probably been through a similar education system to you. So maybe just people who went to your high school, or are from your country studying for an exam that you already took and got a good grade in, things like that you might be able to help with. So for example, in the UK, if you're a sixth form student, offering to tutor anyone in the GCSEs you did or anything below that. If you've got grades to show, I'm sure people would be really happy for you to tutor their students, their children in that.
Absolutely. I think so. I think Andrew's asked. He's from LinkedIn, and he's asked, "Is it worth applying to a business-related master in the US?" Now, I think it's a very difficult decision what you apply to, what you go for, and also what your background is. I think it depends on what you want to go into. My personal thing is that most companies often don't care what you've done before, and the masters in and of itself will not make the sole difference. So it's kind of more about what experiences you have, how you can talk about yourself. And especially if it's like kind of just a master's level, not an MBA, then I don't think it will help for consulting specifically. I think if that's your question. But do message me personally if you want some more information on that.
Okay. It looks like those are all the questions we have. The other questions seem very similar or have already been answered. So one thing I would just add that Amir brought up for UK universities in terms of bursaries, but I just want to stress for anyone from a low-income household applying to US universities is that even without the sudden trust, there is still like a way for you guys to get into US universities. And that's just looking in to see if you can get fee waivers for taking the SAT. And also remember that a lot of, especially top 20 US universities do offer financial aid to international students. And so you might end up getting 100% of your need met. And so that university will pay for you full ride to go and study there. And that might be a better deal than taking out loans in the UK, for example. So really, if you have a dream, follow it, because I'm sure there is a way, especially with project access advisors, to help you get there.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing I'd say is don't give up on yourself before you've done that research. Don't think that it's not for you just because you think, oh, it's going to cost this amount of money. There are things out there, and if you do that research, it can bode incredibly well for you. One question we were sent in separately was, how many extracurriculars should I do? And Ella, do you want to take that?
Yeah, I mean, for the US application system, in your Common App, you can list up to 10, but that does not mean that they expect you to do 10. I would really say put down, it's better to do 1 or 2 extracurriculars really well and spend a lot of time working towards them and being able to show a university that you had a significant impact on your community than it is to do 6 extracurriculars, but maybe you're not as committed to all 6. So if you're like president or leader of a club that you founded in your school or something like that, that's a really great thing to put as an extracurricular. But yeah, I would say it's really dependent on you and what you do. Maybe you do 6 things that you really enjoy and you can write those things, but definitely prioritize a few things that you really want to put loads of time in over 10 things that 5 of which you really don't care about.
Amazing. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in. I'm going to try and make sure that we put as many of the links and things that we recommended, especially links of courses you can take right now, either in the description or in the chat. So do stay on for like maybe 10 minutes or so whilst we do that. But again, thank you so much for tuning in. My name was Amir and this was Ella. And yeah, thank you so much. And hopefully we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, thank you for your questions. Goodbye, guys.